All right, today we're tackling the story of a true telecom titan, Verizon. And to really get a handle on just how massive this company is and the kind of crazy bets it's famous for, we've got to start with one absolutely enormous number. Yeah, $130 billion. That's how much Verizon paid for a single transaction back in 2014. Just to put that in perspective, that was the third largest corporate buyout in history.
Wild.
So you have to ask, right? What in the world does a company even buy with that kind of cash? It wasn't some hot new product. It wasn't a bunch of factories. Nope. It was full ownership of its own wireless business. It was a massive bet on its future. And honestly, it's a huge piece of the puzzle of how Verizon became the giant it is today. Okay, to really get that bet, we have to rewind, like all the way back. And Verizon's story is a little different. It doesn't start in some Silicon Valley garage. No, it starts with the US government breaking up what was, at the time, the biggest company on the planet. This is such a fascinating origin story. You see, Verizon wasn't born from some scrappy startup dream. It was literally forged by a government mandate. Back in 1984, the government decided to shatter the AT&T monopoly, which had been around for like a century. They broke it up into 7 smaller regional companies that people started calling the baby bells. And Verizon's direct ancestor, it was one of those babies, a company called Bell Atlantic. But, Bell Atlantic didn't just sit back and act like a quiet little regional utility for long. Oh no. From those fractured pieces, it immediately started thinking bigger. It began building an empire, with its sights set on becoming a real national powerhouse. And that path to becoming a national giant, it was paved with some absolutely massive mergers. First up, in '97, it joined forces with another baby bell, 9X. That move basically gave them control of the entire Northeast corridor. But then in 2000, they made an even bigger play, merging with a company called GTE, which was an independent telecom that already had a national footprint. But here's the thing. Bell Atlantic's real masterstroke came just before that GTE deal was even finalized. They teamed up with the British telecom giant Vodafone to create something new, Verizon Wireless. This was a joint venture, and it instantly gave them a national mobile network that none of the other regional players could even dream of touching. Bell Atlantic owned the majority, 55%, and Vodafone held the other 45%. So with all these huge mergers creating this new coast-to-coast behemoth, they obviously needed a new name, and that's where Verizon comes from. It's actually a mashup of Veritas, which is Latin for truth, and Horizon. The message they were sending was pretty clear. We're all about reliability, and we've got our eyes on the future. All right, now let's talk about the big swings. With the company firmly established as a leader, Verizon started making these massive billion-dollar bets that would pretty much define its next decade, for better and, well, for worse. So back in the 2010s, the thinking went something like this. Verizon owned the pipes, right? The infrastructure. So why not own the stuff flowing through those pipes, too? The company decided it was going to try and take on Google and Facebook by buying up 2 absolute legends of the early internet, AOL and Yahoo. And they went all in. Between 2015 and 2017, Verizon dropped a cool $9 billion combined to buy AOL and Yahoo. The plan was to create this new media division that they hoped would become this unstoppable advertising juggernaut. Spoiler alert, it didn't work. Just a year later, the company basically had to admit the whole strategy was a massive failure. They took a $4.6 billion write-down. Ouch. Even with this huge built-in audience, they just couldn't compete with these super sophisticated ad machines that Google and Facebook had built. And really, this captures the painful but super important lesson Verizon learned from all this. Stick to what you're good at. Its DNA, going all the way back to the old Bell system, was all about building world-class networks. It was not about creating digital content. It turned out to be a multi-billion-dollar lesson in staying focused. So, lesson learned. Verizon sold off those media assets and got laser-focused back on its core business. And it was just in time, too, because the next huge technological battle was right on the horizon, the war for 5G. But here's the thing. The whole game had changed. When T-Mobile and Sprint merged in 2020, it created a brand new powerhouse competitor. This new T-Mobile suddenly had a huge advantage in what's called mid-band spectrum, and that is the absolute sweet spot for delivering super fast 5G. So let's take a look at the numbers. While Verizon is still the leader in total wireless subscribers, check out those other columns, the one for 5G speed and the one for fixed wireless access, or FWA home internet.
T-Mobile has just jumped way ahead in these key growth areas, and that's putting some serious pressure on Verizon. And yeah, this chart really makes the challenge crystal clear, doesn't it? T-Mobile's average 5G speed is just significantly faster. Now, for a company like Verizon, whose entire brand was built on being the best, most superior network, that's a huge problem. So, what did Verizon do? How did they fight back? Well, they launched two massive counteroffensives. First, a staggering $45 billion investment in new 5G spectrum, all to close that speed gap. And second, a $20 billion deal to buy Frontier Communications to rapidly bulk up its own fiber optic network. These absolutely huge investments really set the stage for the company's newest chapter, a complete, full-scale reboot, all designed to reclaim that undisputed leadership spot in the market. Yeah, to face these new challenges, the company kicked off a complete reboot. Late in 2023, a new CEO, Dan Schulman, took the helm with a really clear mission: shift the company's mindset from network first to customer first. And this new focus, well, it came with a pretty major restructuring, including more than 13,000 job cuts. So what's the new game plan? It all comes down to one word: convergence. The whole strategy is to bundle their mobile plans together with their fast-growing fiber internet network. And the goal? It's simple, really. Make their customers so sticky, give them such a good deal that they never, ever want to leave. And looking even further ahead, Verizon is also betting big on AI. And I don't just mean using it to make their own operations more efficient. They're actually turning it into a product for their business customers, offering these powerful AI solutions that run on top of their advanced 5G network. And that really brings us to the final, most critical question for Verizon's future. Look, this is a company that was built by brilliant engineers who created one of the most reliable networks on Earth. But to win in the next decade, it has to become something different. It needs to become a company that's driven by a passion for the customer. So can a massive engineering giant really change its own DNA? That's the billion-dollar question Verizon is desperately trying to answer right now.